Hey, y'all, did y'all miss us? We sure missed you. Look, watch, like, and subscribe to our channel at Sister Sis 1988, as well as follow us on all our social media platforms at Sister Sis 1988. We have a wonderful show for you today. We have a beautiful, beautiful Black queen joining us today. But before we go there and say who she is, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Jamie.
I'm Latoya.
And I'm Calandra.
And I'm going to let our very, very special guest give us a small summary of who she is, and then we'll jump right into these questions.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. I'm Dr. Jessica Edwards. I'm a family medicine physician, mom, wife, and health tech CEO.
All right.
I like she doing it all, y'all.
I like that laugh when the health tech CEO. I like that one. That was
welcome.
And thank you. It's time to give us today. We knew it's plenty of things you could have been doing, especially being a wife and a mom. So we thank you for this time.
Yes.
But we'll go ahead and we'll jump right in and we'll get it going.
All right. So, how has the power of sisterhood shaped your journey through medical training, motherhood, and business?
Yeah, I think sisterhood, I've had the same few friends for the last 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
So they've been with me since, probably since, high school, all the way through the time that I've been practicing. And, my three best friends, well, four best friends now, are just absolutely incredible. And I feel like, it's often hard once you become a wife and a mom to prioritize your sisterhood and your friendships because you get so caught up in your own world. It's so easy to just say, oh, I'm gonna call them later, or I'm gonna call them, oh, they look good on Facebook. And then, you just, forget to even have human interaction with them. And so
Right.
my friends always, we know to reach out to each other and just say hey girl, you all right? Okay, cool. We'll talk later. And so, for me, my friends have been sort of like my anchor. I would say, my husband is my best friend, obviously, because we're together day in and day out. But, my homegirls will say, okay, Jessica, let's talk through it. Oh, no, I don't like that. Or, they'll just tell me, kind of what's going on. And I feel like, sometimes the healthcare people don't tell you the real because you're a doctor. And sometimes they don't want you to change your perception of them. And so for me, my homegirls always tell me the truth, no matter from when I was a medical student to resident to now, health tech CEO, they will tell me the honest truth, no matter how much it hurts my feelings, and then laugh with me afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep those type of people around you, though, to be honest, because sometimes your status, sometimes people, they feel like they can't tell you, like you just said, they can't tell you the honest truth, But I think it's good to keep yourself surrounded by those people that will always give you the honest truth, no matter what, regardless of what your title is or who you are. Mm-hmm.
And I forget who it is, but it was a rich CEO who stated the worst thing you can do in your life, period. But as a person, especially a person that is a status or the boss of a big business or whatever the case may be, the worst thing you can do is have yes people around you all the time.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
That is a bad. Nobody ever tells you no. Everybody agrees with everything you say. They laugh at every joke. You know what I mean? That's the dangerous positions to be in. So yeah, that's good. That's good. And it keeps you grounded. It keeps you humble.
It does. I don't know if you guys saw what Shannon Sharp's ex-stylist said. He's going through what he's going through now, but he was like, when I was around, this didn't happen. And it's so important, just in general, to have people around you that are going to be like, nope, not you. You can't be around them, and to protect you, because I feel like a lot of times as women, we have trouble establishing boundaries.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes you have to have that bad guy. Like I tell my husband, I'm like, listen, you can be bad cop. My best friend Icy, my best friend, they're like, I remember when I was in college, they used to be like, who's messing with you? Oh, I'm gonna go fight. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. They're like, you have too much to lose, but it's handle it. And so I think that's another beautiful part of sisterhood.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
So, what inspired you to create Zyra Medical and the Flex Clinic model, and how does that serve communities differently?
I think what inspired me was, my dad is a family medicine doctor. He's still practicing now. But I really enjoy having relationships with patients. And I felt like part of the issue is working in someone else's confines of the way that they've set up their practice is hard for a good doctor to kind of establish their own workflow because you're going along with the way, that they're doing things. And so for me, what I found is that I'd say 90% of issues that happen in clinics have absolutely nothing to do with the patient care.
Mhm.
People enjoy their interaction with their doctor and they're like, yeah, I like Dr. So-and-so, but their staff did this, or this happened with the office, or this happened with billing. And so for me, I kind of said, I feel like there's a way to bring excellence through setting up your operation very smoothly. Like, I've had patients that have left other practices to come follow me, as I've established, and they're like, oh my gosh, doctor, was like, your process of setting up an appointment was so smooth. It was so easy. Like you remember the last place you worked at, I just sit there like, I know, like, uh, because I feel like that is the most important thing. And then the other piece is as a doctor, I wanted to try to create a type of medical environment that women like myself and just people in general could feel safe. And I feel like a lot of times when you go into the healthcare space, it's so sterile. It's like, hey, Mr. So and so, you're here for your urine test for chlamydia. Come on back. And you're just like,
What?
Right.
it's a bunch of sick teeth, it's a bunch
Right.
of motion. You got people acting a fool because, I want to talk to a manager, and it's just, I feel like the healthcare experience has been really disrupted with the fact that a lot of business people without the healthcare context have taken over running clinics. And so with that, I decided to become the suit with the stethoscope. And so I just graduated with my MBA back in March, but working for other clinics,
Congratulations.
seeing their inefficiencies, and then also saying, what are my values? What are the core things that matter to me? And all of my decisions from there started reflecting that. So when I said being present for my family is the number one priority, being a happy doctor is another priority as well. And then thirdly, being a sane human being, obviously is another important piece. And so once I kind of made those my boundaries, everything else has followed with that. So having a telehealth practice where I'm licensed in 26 states, I can work from home, we can travel. I'm able to send my son off to school every morning, get him off the bus. And I work in my own sort of flow. And so for me, that has been something that has been absolutely game changing as far as just like my household in general.
Beautiful.
That is. So, as a woman of faith, how have you leaned on your spiritual foundation to overcome challenges in leadership and healthcare?
Oh, Lord. I would say I feel like a lot of times God just shuts my mouth.
Mm, mm.
And like I want to say something so bad, like, oh, like I can't, and it's just like Spirit of God is just like, okay. I remember a few weeks ago, I don't know what I was freaking out. It was just something I was looking at, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, I'm gonna get this done. Da, 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 da. And next thing you know, I had an email that pop up, with the answer that I needed. And I'm just like, God just keeps telling me, like, trust me, lean not on your own understanding. And so
Mm.
my dad is a doctor, but he was also a minister as well.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
he named our church St. Luke Christian Church. And so I believe that with the healing power of Jesus Christ, and then also with, prioritizing mental health and accepting help and guidance, I think it's possible for people to do anything, right? And so for me, it's always kind of been, I trust my spirit. If I'm not sure about something, I don't make a decision right then. I'll be like, you know what, let me think on it, depending on who I'm talking to. If they're, Christian, also I'll say, I'm gonna go pray about this, because if not, you don't want people saying like, what are especially, with people in other environments. But, I pause and I make sure that I think through things. I listen to my spirit. I don't rush to try to make decisions. And so I make sure that my steps are ordered. And then I would also say that as far as just like learning to be still, that has been a lesson that I've learned over the last, couple of years where, I used to start my morning off like, okay, let me get up, let me start doing this. Now I just open up my eyes first thing in the morning and just say, God, I'm just so glad to be here. Thank you. I'm
Thank you.
thankful
Real.
for,
Yep.
for the ability to see. I'm thankful for the beautiful sunshine outside, even if it's raining. I'm thankful, that my garden is right. Just trying to start off my day with gratitude and practicing that gratitude and humbleness throughout my day, no matter what interaction has been sort of how I've had God lead me through, becoming a leader, because becoming a leader and being an entrepreneur is a completely different thing. right?
Mm.
Because leading someone else's company, you're, I wouldn't say conforming to their ways, but you're having to run things in the way that they want you to run them.
Yeah.
And, oftentimes I feel like as women leaders, it becomes overwhelming because we're such, how would I say, we're such givers. Like we want
Yeah.
to do the best job, especially as Black women. We love taking
Mhm.
care of, we love just handling it. And oftentimes I find that our other colleagues, they don't do that. They set boundaries. Their boss calls them on a Saturday. They're like, I didn't see that. I'll call them back Sunday night. And, they set those boundaries early on. And so what I find is that a lot of times in leadership, by listening to your spirit, you don't make those decisions that could boil over later. You go with your gut and say, you know what? It's 8:30 at night. I'm not talking to you. I am not on the clock right now. I am with family. And once people realize that, they understand it and it starts to push through further. I would say as far as like entrepreneurship, I feel like he has a great way of letting the trash take itself out.
Mm.
Mm.
And so I feel like as an entrepreneur, I do my best to do due diligence on people. I do my best to try to bring the right people together. But when that doesn't work, you won't find me being like, oh, I'm going to fire this person. I'm going to do this. And I start talking to I'm just like, God, expose, reveal, and remove if it ain't right. And it just starts happening all on its own. And so I feel like as I've stepped out of the driver's seat and let God lead, everything is just falling into place so much better for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so my question would be like, what does it mean to you to like take ground as a Black woman in medicine, entrepreneurship, and then how do you stay rooted with doing so?
I think taking ground is educating yourself on what the possibilities are and picking one that solves a problem that other people need solved. I feel like it's an equation of that for me. So for instance, like with my practice, I saw, the pain points of the healthcare system. I said, well, why don't I create my own practice and try to design it in the fact of, would I like this practice if I was a patient? Would I want to come back here? Would
Mm.
I want to see me? And I always kind of step outside of myself in that sense. The taking ground part, I think, really is just creating your own lane. I feel like so many times we see other people are like, oh, I want to emulate them. I want to be like this person, or I want to do what they did. And it's like sometimes seeing that inspiration is enough to show you success, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their path is going to be yours.
Yours. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I try my best to make my own lane. I don't try to compete with other people. I don't worry about what other people have going on, because I was watching something that Halle Berry said. She was like, people should just start doing what they want to do, because at the end of the day, nobody really cares. She's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
She's right. And so I've just started making the decisions that work best for me, work best for my family. Unapologetically, I've learned how to pivot and say, you know what, this isn't working out, and cutting it short instead of trying to. And that was another thing I talked about with my husband the other day, about the fact that a lot of times entrepreneurs that are very nice people, we tend to let things drag on even when we see the signs early. That's what makes business tough. It's not, people are very smart. You have to be very smart to open up a business. I think to run a business is a different thing, but to open a business, it's fine. But I think when it comes down to looking at what impact am I going to make? How is this going to affect my life, my family's life, my staff's life? Taking those big decisions into account and just going with it and staying consistent, and trying to create your own lane is how I feel like I take ground.
Okay, okay.
That's awesome.
I want to ask you something with that, because you said as far as running a business, what did you find for yourself? Okay, you had already became a doctor, right? You had already did your thing. You had already did your residency and things like that. What came difficult for you as you ran your business? Because as you say, we do prolong people that we need to let go. Sometimes we prolong it. And
Right.
so what did you find most difficult?
I think I found the most difficult properly budgeting for disasters.
Okay.
Right? Like I would say, or some of the hidden costs that you wouldn't think about, right? Because as a doctor, when I sit down and make a budget, obviously I'm an MBA now, so the budget I made, 3, 4, 5 years ago is going to be different than the one I'm making now. But in general, with being able to sit down and say, okay, what are the things that I'm not thinking about that could come up later? And so when you make a budget, thinking about the fact that, insurance companies pay when they want to pay. I there's a healthcare company, I will leave nameless, but they pay via check 30 to 60 days after you see the patient. Criminal. Like, that's crazy. Like, and so I think accounting for that sort of stuff and I wouldn't say not overly investing in myself, but also being very thoughtful about the people I take advice from. I would say that, when back in December of last year, I had an opportunity to go to Damon John's CEO Day. Didn't even really have the money, but I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to go to this. It was great, right? But then also looking into I did like a mentorship, leadership kind of thing, and it didn't really serve me. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I should have just waited before trying to do another thing and just kind of focus on the things that I had now. So I think that's probably one of the bigger pieces, because it's a fine balance between like investing in the business, investing in your leadership, and then also being able to run the business and then accounting for changes and dips within the economy. So I would say that's probably been the hardest challenge, because I think there are a lot of challenges that I would say, particularly as African Americans, like if we haven't seen a successful business run before, we don't know that stuff. And before the age of the internet, we didn't have ChatGPT. Now I feel like there's no excuse, because you can literally go on ChatGPT and say, "What is this? What is that?" And any questions that you want. So, it says we perish for a lack of knowledge. We're not perishing no more because
no, not at all.
Right?
No.
So I feel like that's a
there.
that should be made.
And so, do you, being the success that you've had, and then I'll ask my other question, but through the success that you had, I had this conversation with a lady that I'm being mentored by. I'm always educating myself and re-educating myself. Don't you think that that is a process, even as a business owner, needs to continue? You always need to continue to learn, because I do find that sometimes people that I meet when I'm networking, it's like they got their success and they just stayed there. They didn't do nothing further. They didn't update their education. They didn't do no training, no. You could say, like you said, mentoring. Mentoring doesn't have to necessarily be you just talking to someone all the time, but just being within a program where a group of people who are like-minded, like you, get together, you get to talk, you get to talk about issues going on within your company that somebody may have a perfect answer to. You may not, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's what I've found. How would you think? Continuing to learn throughout your process of being a business owner is very important. Wouldn't you agree?
I would. I try to learn something new every day. It's so funny. I worked with a company, to try to help me with some marketing. I was like, hey, like, we're gonna try to work with them, and things were stalled, delayed, all kind of stuff. And one day I was just like, I'm gonna learn how to do this myself. So I went on ChatGPT, I just started looking stuff up. So now I can say I know how to edit videos, I know how to do my own social media posts, I know how to optimize SEO on my own, I know how to develop websites myself with a drag and drop thing, obviously not like the coding part, but I try to learn something new every day. And so I feel like one of the things that gives you an edge is that when you learn a new skill, even if it's basic, and you start doing business, you're able to know when somebody's trying to play you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's going to take 3 weeks. And you're like,
Nah.
That's not realistic. Yeah.
It shouldn't take 3 weeks.
it's not, it's not going to take that long because I know how to do it. And then people are like, oh, okay, I can't play with her no more. Okay, so what happened? That's right what I was thinking,
Right.
And so I think that is one of the things that, with all the technology that's out there now, it gives us sort of that edge where you can continue to learn. It doesn't have to be where you're sitting down reading a book anymore. And I think that is one of the beautiful things about like AI. You can ask directed questions about something you're thinking of right in that moment without having to read through a bunch of stuff. You can tailor it to, please give me bulleted points. I don't have much time. And it works.
Yeah.
It does.
It does.
So,
Okay.
so I do have a question in between that. So I'm also a fellow entrepreneur. We're all nurses as well, but I run a in-home healthcare agency. So question, how do you keep yourself mentally healthy with being an entrepreneur and being a doctor? How do you keep yourself mentally healthy? Trying to balance being a wife, trying to balance being a mother, trying to balance being an entrepreneur. How do you keep yourself mentally healthy?
Yeah, like going on, sis.
Right, I do. I keep myself mentally healthy because I have been very, very unapologetic about my boundaries and values.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I would say I probably got to this point maybe within the last year, because before it was just like,
Oh, okay.
All over the
and
place.
just like to the point to where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is too much. Like, why did I even sign up for this? This is crazy, yada, yada, you know? And so I got to the point to where like, I make my decisions based off what's best for my family. And so if there is, you know, I sit down and talk to my husband before I set my schedule, and I'm like, hey, let's go through my schedule. What days? Is there anything that you have planned? Is there anything here? We set our schedule once a week together and we don't deviate unless it's something really, really important, right? So like on Sundays, I have a rule that I don't open up my computer
Okay.
until like after dark. And I make sure that like that day I'm spending time with my kids, I'm engaged, interactive. Saturday, I make a rule. We drop the kids off to the babysitter and I rest. We just rest. We watch some podcasts, we clean up together, and we just spend kind of like uninterrupted time together. And so I think that has been one of the things that has helped me kind of keep things in perspective, because I know the number one things that count to me, right? And so with that, if there's an opportunity that is going to cut into their time, I mean, obviously not today, like it's fine. But you know, if there's something that's going to cut into their time, I'll be like, no, I'm sorry, like that doesn't work for my schedule. And I think being unapologetic about saying no has probably been one of the best things that has happened to me, because I used to be kind of a yes person. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it, not even thinking about myself. So I think one, picking things that are going to work, I think is key, right? Like doing that background research about, okay, is this financially worth it for me to be an entrepreneur with this sort of thing, right? And so, like, for instance, now we're working on a software company we're working on a software company called Novacheck. And so we're creating an AI program that's going to be able to help with clinical decision making and things like that, you know, just kind of in real time. And so with doing that, that has inspired like a whole nother thing. But what's so good about it is that it came from a decision of like, hey, I have all of this knowledge in healthcare. Looks like the medicine side isn't really paying out, or not even paying out, but paying off, you know, with like the balance of time and all that sort of stuff. What else can I do to diversify how I spend my time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So into the AI and the tech stuff. And then this was something that I really fell in love with. Next thing you know, my husband likes it. So now it's a thing that, from a goal to try to make life balance and make the money make sense, we were able to come together and have that together. And so it's something that we both really enjoy talking about.
I see. That's cool.
So can you share a moment when your support system or friendships were essential to helping you keep going? Kind of answered that, but I'm gonna let you give it a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I would say medical school. Man, it was tough. Oh, it was tough. And my husband and I started dating when I was in medical school and I was starting my rotations. And so, you know, you go from sitting in front of a computer and sitting down studying for 12, 14, 15 hours a day to now you're in the hospital 14, 15 hours a day. And so in all of those clinical settings, all of those traveling, all of this sort of stuff, like my friends totally showed up for me every time. They'd be like, I'm flying to come see you. You're not going to be by yourself anymore. And I'm like, okay. And so I really leaned on them. I leaned on, you know, doing rotations where near my husband lived. He was in Kansas City at the time. So I did like a rotation in Tulsa. So I was able to see him every weekend. And that really helped me. But the other thing that I did, and I think a lot of our community was, there was a colleague of mine who was talking to my dad one day. It was like, you know, the only problem that I have with the Black community is that you guys kick your kids out too early. My husband was like, he was like, you know, what do you mean? And he's like, you know, my kids, he's like, you know, they graduate from high school at 18, you know, we have them, you know, either go to college, they live on campus, or like they'll stay with us. We already have like a house, you know, a duplex or something where like they can stay in, and, you know, we got revenue coming in so that they can make enough money. And, you know, he was like, we support them a lot longer beyond 18. He was like, it's like, once your kids turn 18, they're not even fully developed yet. Most men aren't even developed today, probably late 30s, around there.
We gonna keep quiet on that.
We gonna be quiet.
Anyway, keep it moving.
Exactly. Right. So with that being said, like, you know, looking at how do we balance it all, right? Like how do we look at, okay, I need my friends here. I also need my mental sanity. I also need all of this. And so for me, I decided, I said, you know what? I'm gonna live life. Even if I'm in medical school, I'm still gonna travel. I'm still gonna do all this, even if it's once a year. Like, people always post on social media, all of the great things that are happening. A lot of times people don't post, all of the moments where they didn't feel sure about themselves. And so, there was a period, I think I was probably like in my second year of medical school. I was seeing everybody travel, everybody who I went to college with, because they already had their masters, they were done, and
Done.
and I feel like I developed this like spirit of jealousy because I would get on Facebook and like, she on her, where's she at now? And I was hating it. So my friends were like, you know what? Let's just take a trip, dude. Like, let's just do something.
Yeah. Okay.
We have each other, and so I think just being able to have people that can pick you up when you're down and kind of bring things back into context, especially in the medical school and residency part, was amazing. And my friends would never hesitate to be like, I'm coming to see you, like, and just drop everything. And I've done the same thing for them.
That's cool.
Well, I would say, first of all, what you've done is amazing, but it's nice when you meet someone who's ran a business and the same, like she said, Calandra said, all three of us are nurses and been nurses for a very long time. I think I'm coming up on year like 17 or something like this.
Amazing.
Long time. Whew, long time. But within that, I've had a couple different businesses that, and things change every year. And then now that you're talking about the AI, we all three of us were having a conversation actually recently about AI and how much it's changing and how much it's going to take over as far as jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yep.
I feel like entrepreneurs eventually, I would say yes, some people are jealous, but it's going to turn different because AI is going to be able to save so much money for so many entrepreneurs because AI is going to be able to do so much. Need a staff,
Correct.
like what you used to.
Correct. 100%. I think AI is probably going to decrease the amount of human touch needed.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
And I think about it though, and I'm like, I think this is now when people are going to understand how important it is for human touch.
Correct.
I think this. I think AI is great as far as business wise because it's in your pocket. But as far as socially, family wise, things like that, I don't think it's a good thing that's happening because when you go to just like different things, okay, you can just go to a restaurant and be eating. Most of the time, sometimes people are not even talking like it's a family table. A lot of people are not even talking to each other. Everybody's in their phone.
Their phone, yeah.
So it's kind of like, where we going, y'all? I don't know if it's a good thing or not. But like I said, it's got its good ways too. But we're going to end it there, Dr. Edwards, and we're going to bring you back. So
until next time,
there's strength and sisterhood.
And support in sisterhood.
Bye.
Bye.
bye.